Ben Franklin said in 1763, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Everybody quotes that about health, but he wasn't even talking about health.
What was he talking about?
Fire departments. Philadelphia kept burning down, and he's basically telling the city, hey, maybe pay for buckets and ladders now instead of rebuilding the whole block later.
Of course you knew that.
I contain multitudes, but it holds up because 290 years later, we're still bad at this. There's a real CDC stat that actually stopped me from scrolling. Something like 12% of men say they always wear sunscreen versus women who wear it all the time.
So much skin cancer, man.
Women are out here doing the actual buckets and ladders version of skincare, and most guys are just waiting for the fire.
And you're telling me this because
it's basically the whole hair loss industry in one stat. Guys wait until the house is on fire, until they're already thinning in the mirror, and then they want the miracle cure. Meanwhile, there's a whole ounce of prevention playbook sitting right there the entire time.
So today's the Buckets and Ladders episode.
Today's the Buckets and Ladders episode. This is the Above the Hairline podcast coming to you from the land of 10,000 hair follicles at the offices of the Hair Restoration Institute of Minnesota. I'm Nate.
I'm Alec. Nate, what's that board behind you?
That's our flight wall. Some people keep writing in asking if there really were a lot of flights coming into Minneapolis. And so I bought one here so they could see for themselves. If you see your home city flash up on the screen, just know that with our Hair by Air program, you're just a short trip away from the best hair transplant you'll ever have.
Okay, fun toy. So today, unfortunately, Nate's the expert.
Unfortunately?
You run a hair restoration company and haven't even gotten a transplant yet. You're a walking case study.
To be clear, I would 100% invest in a hair transplant, but thus far, I've been able to achieve my goals through prevention alone. And so today, I'm going to be walking through my actual stack, the things that I take every day, that I apply, that I sit under in order to keep my hair. And you get to grill me about all of it.
I'll be grilling you.
So quick context for anyone new. A lot of people in my family have had hair transplants. My dad had one. My father-in-law had one. And he had his right here at HRI. So I'm surrounded on both sides by men who eventually just went and did it.
And you're still the holdout.
I'm still the holdout. And I'll be honest, part of why I never laid this out publicly before is I know how it sounds. The CEO of a hair transplant company doing everything that he can to avoid a transplant.
It does sound a little like betting against your own team.
It's the opposite, actually. I'm the proof that the earlier stuff isn't just marketing filter. It's a real path for the right guy at the right stage. So let's go through it. We'll go through all of it, including the stuff I've specifically ruled out.
Let's start with the foundation.
Okay, so the foundation is finasteride. I've been on that the longest. That's a non-negotiable for me at this point.
Non-negotiable, why?
Because it's the one with the real long-term data behind it. The American Academy of Dermatologists numbers around 88% of guys on finasteride see their hair loss slow or stop. That's roughly 2/3 of them see some actual regrowth. In my experience, I've seen that more among the younger patients than the older ones, but those stats are out there. And I've seen other numbers that claim that finasteride is 95% effective. So it's doing the real work, and everything else is really the supporting cast when it comes to prevention.
So how does it work?
Finasteride inhibits an enzyme in your body called 5-alpha reductase, or 5-AR. And that's what converts the good testosterone into the bad DHT. DHT is the hormone that causes hair loss. Finasteride doesn't get rid of all of your DHT, but it does lower it to the point that it stops with hair loss.
Okay, makes sense. What's next?
Minoxidil. And I've done both oral and topical at different points.
Why not both? Isn't that redundant?
Well, it's not so much redundant as it is sequential. So I started on topical because that's what everyone starts out on. I didn't like the oily feeling on my head, and it takes a while to apply correctly because you gotta, put it on your scalp. What I found is that anything that slows my morning routine down is a friction. And so instead, when HRI started its partnership with our compounding pharmacy here in town, I added a low dose oral minoxidil as well as biotin to my finasteride. And so compliance wise, it just is much easier. I find it's hard to forget to take one pill than is a two-step process.
All right, so if the pill's so great, why do people even use the topical?
Well, the topical version is no longer prescription only, so it's much easier to get. We have a version on our website that people like, and you can also get versions over the counter at a drugstore. Second is the benefits are localized to where you apply it topically. And so that's a great option for women in particular who want to have hair on their heads, but not necessarily on their faces.
All right. So for you, the topical is basically retired.
Basically. And I'll flag the honest downside. So oral's use in minoxidil is actually off-label for hair loss. So you need to do a little bit of monitoring. What oral minoxidil can do is it can lower your blood pressure slightly. Most people end up having higher blood pressure, so that actually ends up being a pretty good thing. But the best practice would be to check your blood pressure and pause it if you feel lightheaded. You should also talk to your cardiologist if you're under care for one of those things like heart palpitations.
Good. I'm glad you said that because I was going to. What does minoxidil do?
It's basically like caffeine for your hair. Your hair has a working phase and a sleeping phase. These phases last months. Hair grows in the working phase, and the hair shaft falls out while the hair follicle rests in the sleeping phase. As your hair ages, it kind of acts like an old man. It goes to bed earlier and earlier, and it ends up working less and less. Eventually, your hair spends all of its time sleeping. And what minoxidil does is it wakes up that hair, and it keeps it awake so it can grow longer.
So you drink your daily coffee and get a jump on the day. But sometimes on the weekends, I like to skip my coffee, but then I feel tired. Does that mean my hair will need a nap? Does the analogy hold for minoxidil?
It does. So if you stop taking minoxidil, your hair will actually go back to its early bedtime, and some of that hair that you gained will shed back out when the hair follicle falls asleep early again.
All right. So unlike finasteride, minoxidil is looking for a long-term commitment.
Yes, minoxidil is the fiancé medication. You better put a ring on it. Next, I take vitamins. And we've already mentioned biotin, also known as vitamin B7. Biotin supports the production of keratin, and that's a protein that forms hair. It also acts as a coenzyme that helps your body metabolize carbohydrates, fats, amino acids, all into usable energy and cellular building materials. Of all the vitamins for hair loss, biotin is the best known, but there are many more. And I'll say that at the start that vitamins don't have much of the same medical scrutiny as some of the other medications. So many of them that you'll see in a GNC, likely don't do so much.
I get so many ads for hair loss vitamins, and we carry several of them here at the clinic. Are you telling me that they're all garbage?
No, not at all. It depends on the use case. So first, our bodies need a certain amount of a particular nutrient to grow optimal hair. And so if your blood work comes back with deficiencies, taking a hair-specific daily vitamin can be helpful. And the ones that you should look out for in that blood panel will be iron, vitamin D, folate, pantothenic acid, zinc, selenium, iodine, copper, manganese. These nutrients all support normal cell division, keratin formation, thyroid function, and antioxidant protection. And we recommend when you take these vitamins, you want to take them with your fattiest meal of the day, so an avocado or a yogurt, and that helps aiding in your body's absorption of it.
All right. So do people need to have blood work done to take vitamins?
No, you could think about vitamins as an insurance policy to rule out nutrition as a contributing factor. The next category of vitamins are the ones that mimic the benefits of medications. Some people don't want to take medicines and they prefer natural and herbal solutions. There's no judgment here. To each his own. And so these are the next best thing. If you're not going to take finasteride, then you can take these instead. For me, I see it's like wearing a belt and suspenders.
That must really keep your pants on. So what are the vitamins in this category?
The two best known are saw palmetto and beta-sitosterol, which have preliminary evidence that they may influence the enzyme involved with converting testosterone into DHT. So pretty much any vitamin that's specifically labeled for hair loss will be derived from saw palmetto.
So you're basically eating little palm trees?
Well, the berries of them at least. Yeah, but wait, some ingredients get even weirder.
Hit me.
So marine collagen.
So fish like cod and shellfish?
Yes. It's intended to provide marine proteins, amino acids, and related nutrients that the body can use to support keratin production. Marine protein supplements have produced encouraging results in randomized placebo-controlled hair studies. But there is variation between the sources and batches.
Someone with a shellfish allergy should probably hold off on that one.
Correct. And everything I've mentioned so far is including the HRI complete vitamins that we make here in the clinic. We also have an AA or an anti-allergen version without the shellfish for that same reason.
All right. But I'd say there are a lot more ingredients we haven't covered. What are the other vitamins out there?
So now we're down to the botanical ingredients. This is the kind of lowest level. This would include things like green tea, pygeum, stinging nettle, grapeseed extract. These are included for possible anti-androgen, antioxidant, and follicle-supporting effects, but the evidence is not equally strong for each ingredient. Nutrafol Men, which is probably the most widely known hair loss vitamin out there, uses a similar multi-pathway approach, combining saw palmetto with marine collagen, peptides, ashwagandha, curcumin, tocotrienols, hyaluronic acid, vitamins, and other minerals.
So this last group of vitamins is more like Pascal's wager. They may or may not help, but they don't hurt, so you might as well take them to have the best hair possible.
To extend that gambling metaphor further, if you want to shift your odds to your favor to achieve every advantage of the house, like that's how you win when you're trying to gamble.
Right, because otherwise the house always wins. Okay, that's more than I ever wanted to know about vitamins. Let's move on to treatments for hair. Have you done PRP?
Yes. So PRP stands for platelet-rich plasma. How it works is the provider takes a small draw of your blood, typically on your arm. It spins it in a centrifuge to concentrate the platelets and growth factors that are in that blood sample, and then the provider injects it back into your scalp. It's one of the better supported non-drug options, especially when stacked on top of the meds rather than instead of.
All right, so tell me about Vitti Pure growth factors. That's the newer one, right?
So Vitti Pure is in the same neighborhood conceptually. It's a growth factor and exosome-based treatment, but instead of using your own blood, it's derived from donor tissue. So there's no draw, there's no spin. It just comes out of a deep freezer, and it's a straight injection or microneedling delivery. So I started that more recently. It's promising as part of the same give the follicle a growth signal family as PRP.
And so conceptually, how do these growth factors work?
Do you like a sports metaphor?
If you're taking requests, I'll choose football.
Okay. So the dermal papilla or papillae, it sits in the very bottom of the hair follicle, and it's like the quarterback. It calls the plays by communicating with the other parts of the hair. And as the hair gets older, its voice gets weaker. And without its instructions, the different parts of the follicle don't know how to run the play. They don't know how to grow. Growth factors act like a bullhorn that allows the papillae's instructions to be heard loud and clear, allowing the follicle to grow and run down the field into the end zone.
Nicely done. And you've also done stem cell exosomes as well?
Correct.
So how is that different?
Well, they're both harvested from umbilical cords, from happy, healthy babies delivered by cesarean section. People like to know that. And while they both involve very small injections in the scalp, that's really where the similarities end. While growth factors are about communication, exosomes are the extracellular matrix that is needed to put those instructions to work. If the growth factors are a megaphone for calling football plays, the exosomes also include the coach on the sidelines to draft the players, run the training camp, choose a lineup, hire the medics, the chefs, and the personal trainers.
I like that analogy. Okay, but let's do a different one. Let's go with home construction.
Okay, so growth factors are the blueprints and exosomes are the scaffolding.
You're on fire. Another analogy. Gardening.
Growth factors are the fertilizer and exosomes are the greenhouse, the plant beds, and the sprinkler systems.
Nice job. Okay, so back to hair. How do you decide which treatment is right for you?
Generally, what I recommend is if you have miniaturizing hair, go for the growth factors. You'll do a course of treatments typically over 4 to 6 months, and the goal is to get each of those little hairs to grow longer and thicker. If instead you have balding and are otherwise considering a transplant, then go exosomes. We do just one treatment of those because there's more potential that it will have a dramatic result and also comes at a higher price tag.
Yeah, and I think for what it's worth, another thing you can do is just come in for a free consultation here and we'll just tell you what we recommend because we can usually find the right answer for you. But I'd say this as well. I mean, when we see patients who have advanced hair loss, there's maybe so much that we don't know if they'll have enough donor hair for a transplant to achieve their goals. We sometimes recommend the exosome treatments to expand the donor region and try to shrink the balding area.
Yeah, and it's also why for women who have more of a hair thinning, we've seen such a huge increase and the number of clients that are choosing growth factors.
Indeed. So let's talk about the last therapy, laser cap.
Laser cap. Yeah. So LLLT, low level light therapy. I wear it a few times a week. It's an FDA cleared device. It increases blood flow to the follicle. It extends the growth phase of our hair. It's not going to do what finasteride does, but it's a genuinely evidence-backed, extra, zero effort beyond sitting there for 7 minutes treatment.
So the treatments you haven't done yet would be microneedling?
Yeah, that's basically a DIY version of PRP, but there's like a slightly greater risk for infection.
And hair transplant.
Which I would get in a heartbeat.
So if I'm ranking this whole stack, what's actually load-bearing?
So finasteride first, and that's not even close. And I probably put minoxidil second, but exosomes have to be close behind, followed by the laser cap and the vitamins.
All right, sounds good. So now for the fun part. What have you specifically ruled out?
All right, so this is my favorite part of the show.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
So rosemary oil is the big one right now. It's everywhere on TikTok, everywhere on Reddit. There is one small older study I found that gets cited constantly, which compares it to minoxidil. And the internet has turned that rosemary oil is basically minoxidil into a thing, which is not what that study actually showed.
I get asked about that one constantly in consultations.
Constantly. Rubbing an essential oil in your scalp isn't going to hurt you, but it's not replacing an actual DHT blocker. It's aromatherapy with a marketing team.
What else?
So there's a trend towards biotin megadosing. And unless you're one of the rare people with a documented deficiency, huge doses of biotin are not going to do anything for your hair. And it can actually throw off certain lab tests, which is a problem on its own. It's cheap. It's easy to sell in a gummy.
How about onion juice?
It sounds bizarre, but it's a real thing that people do. There was one small trial from a few years ago that got cited to death, and I'm not putting onion juice on my head. I made my decision, and I'm standing by it. I'm going to keep the onions on the plate.
Same here. Rice water?
Same category. It's like a folk remedy. There's thin evidence. It's very much an online thing.
Let's do rapid fire. Cold caps, ice rollers, the vibrating scalp massage gadgets.
So increasing blood flow to the scalp is not a crazy idea in theory. It's part of why laser caps and even minoxidil are thought to work. But a $5 ice roller isn't delivering anything close to a clinical dose of that effect. It's just a scalp massage, which might feel nice, but it's not a treatment.
And I know you're going to bring this up since we already flagged it as a trend of the week material.
BCP 157. Yeah, so in the peptide biohacking world, this is a thing that's talked about. There's no real human growth data. I pass because there are real risks with experimental treatments with unknown side effects. And the first rule of hair care is to do no harm.
I think we're both on the same team, skeptical of anything with a Reddit thread and no doctor behind it.
Indeed. And finally, I want to flag some cosmetic treatments that do work that I have not tried. I say do work because they increase the appearance of hair. Really, they do. But they don't change the overall health of the hair itself.
So what falls in this bucket?
So perhaps the best known is the hair system. This is where real human hairs are injected into a skin-like membrane, which is then bonded to the scalp. You can instantly fill a large bald area with real human hair that you can cut, style, blow dry, swim in. Obviously, that solution is only for those who have already experienced, pretty significant hair loss.
All right. What else?
Well, there's scalp micropigmentation, which is where we can hide thinning areas by addressing the scalp, specifically by applying micropigments that simulate the look of hair onto the scalp, just like a tattoo.
I've seen that produce some pretty incredible results, especially on women with the wide center part and men thinning in the crown.
Yeah, it's like microblading for the scalp. And this last option on this list is SMP's temporary cousin, which I think frankly looks incredible, and that's hair fibers.
For those out there who haven't seen the YouTubes of people applying these fibers to their bald spots, it's like you're witnessing a person sprinkling a full head of hair before your very eyes. The problem is that it washes out.
Correct. And it doesn't address the underlying cause of hair loss.
Got it. All right, real quick before we get into the back half. I talk to out-of-state patients on the consult floor pretty much every week. And the first question is never, does the surgery work? It's, how do I actually do this if I don't live in Minnesota? That's what the Hair by Air is for. You fly into MSP, we handle the pickup, the procedure day, the recovery. A lot of guys are wheels up again within a few days. It's built for people who want HRI's team specifically and don't want the logistics to be the reason why they don't do it. If that's you, the landing page is linked in the show notes, or just book a free consult and ask about it directly.
Minnesota is beautiful this time of year.
Absolutely. So, all right, let's zoom out. If somebody's listening and thinking about starting some version of this, where do they actually start?
Start with the foundation first. Finasteride and minoxidil, if you're a candidate, full stop. before any of the extras. Vitamins are cheap. Vitamins are a cheap insurance policy, but are must do if your labs come back off. And you want to give it a real timeline, 3 to 6 months to see it stabilize, a full year before you know what your actual result's going to be for some of these treatments. And the extras like PRP, exosomes, growth factors, laser cap, you want to layer those in once the foundation is in place.
And if the foundation doesn't hold, if you do all this real stuff, not the rosemary oil, and you're still losing ground,
well, then that's a sign you might not be dealing with pattern hair loss, and you might have a condition that's more serious. A scalp biopsy ordered by your primary care physician can give you a definitive answer. But don't worry, options like hair systems, scalp micropigmentation, they're still really good options that would also apply to you. And once the hair loss is stabilized, you can focus on restoring what was lost. And that's great. That's surgery's job. That's what a hair transplant is all about. And it's not something to be embarrassed about.
Yeah, and we're basically just telling people they don't need to jump straight to surgery. An ounce of prevention is real. It's just work. And most guys don't do the work until the fire's already smoldering.
And ladders.
All right, so speaking of people who don't want to do any of what we just spent 20 minutes describing,
Smooth transition.
there's a blog post on hrimn.com that's basically the exit ramp for exactly that person. Hair systems for beginners.
This is for the guy who hears everything I just laid out, the pills, the labs, the 12-month timeline, the laser caps, and just goes, no, thank you. I want it solved by Friday.
And that's honestly a legit answer. A modern hair system isn't just a consolation prize anymore. It's a full-based, hand-tied, matched to your color and density, and it gives you a finished look immediately. No waiting on a growth cycle, no compliance required, no blood work.
Which is almost the exact opposite philosophy that I've been doing, which is, to slowly invest in my hair. It pays off over a very long period of time. It's very quiet. A hair system is you pay up front for the result and you wear it out the door tomorrow and you look 100%.
Right. And the piece is honest about the trade-off. It's not zero maintenance. You're getting it professionally serviced every 3 to 5 weeks, rebonded, cared for, but it's maintenance of a finished product, not maintenance of a process that might or might not work.
And apparently the biggest hurdle for most guys isn't even the logistics or the tape and the glue.
It's confidence. Walking into the office Monday with a full head of hair. The blog's actually got real practical advice on that. Basically own it. Tell a couple people directly instead of hoping nobody notices.
I tell people if a gym could guarantee me abs, I would sign up in a heartbeat.
And here basically is a hair salon guaranteeing you perfect hair. An easy sell.
So if you're the person going, I don't want an ounce of prevention, I want a pound of the finished product right now, that post is for you.
Links in the show notes.
Okay, now we'll go to our trend of the week, and this one we already teased.
BPC 157.
So it shows up on Reddit this week. Someone basically posted, what's the deal with BPC 157 for hair? And there were 60 some odd comments.
And the verdict?
Mostly skepticism. Some people flat out calling it a scam. And like I said earlier, the actual clinical picture, backs up the scam idea. There's no credible human data showing this does anything for hair growth. It's an early stage biohacking hype, but it's not a treatment.
Consistent with everything you just ruled out.
Very consistent while it stays closed.
Okay, so question of the week. And this one's actually a great follow-up to everything we just did.
What do we got?
So paraphrasing a thread, someone wrote in basically asking, why am I still losing hair if my DHT is low? I got blood work done and my DHT isn't even elevated. So why is this still happening to me? Nobody in the thread gave him a real answer, just a lot of guessing.
This is a common mix-up, and it's worth clearing up. Your blood DHT level and what's happening at the follicle level are not the same thing. What actually matters for pattern hair loss is how sensitive your specific follicle is to DHT. Some guys have completely normal, even low serum DHT, and they still lose hair because their follicles are genetically wired to overreact to it.
And it's not necessarily about how much DHT you have, it's how your hair reacts to it.
Exactly. Receptor sensitivity, inherited, not too much hormone problem. There's also a real local versus systemic issue. The DHT concentration right at the scalp follicle could behave differently than what's showing up on a blood draw.
So blood work that comes back normal doesn't actually rule anything out.
Not on its own. And DHT isn't the only thing that causes shedding. There's thyroid issues, low iron or ferritin, high stress, some autoimmune conditions, and they can all look like classic pattern hair loss, or they can make the genetic case even worse. So if someone were doing everything right, they're on the medication, but yet they're still losing ground, that's exactly the kind of case where I'd want an actual evaluation instead of just staring at one lap.
So the guy on Reddit, the question's warranted. It's just a bad venue for an answer.
Great question, wrong crowd. That's why we're here. Scalp biopsy would clear all that up. All right, so to close this out, I want on the record that I'm still on team hold the line, at least for now.
For now.
And, ask me in 5 years.
If you forget your prescription refills in 5 years, we're doing this exact episode again, and the answer may be different.
Perfect. And that's the show.
I'm Alec.
I'm Nate. Get your buckets and ladders all set before the fire starts.
Better sign off than last time.